Welcome to Third Culture Leaders in Dubai. We have some amazing guests for you. Check out this episode and I hope you enjoy. I had the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Dima Jamali.
So I took it as my new challenge. We started from zero.
Dr. Jamali is an incredible woman with an incredible story. Not only has she been an academic and continues to be an academic,
Because I had the privilege to be exposed to the American system of education, but also to the UK system.
but she's also led the way for sustainability in Lebanon and was once a politician, a member of parliament in Lebanon as well.
This was, I would say, a diversion, but something that also added a new dimension to my life. It was never planned, never intended.
Incredible to understand how you shift from academic theories to practical applications, and then going into government, trying to make your country into a better place. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you do too. Dr. Jamali, thank you so much for coming on the Third Culture Leaders podcast today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
We had some great discussions just before we got started. So there's so many things that I'm very excited to get into with you and discuss. But I really like to appreciate your childhood and your journey as a young woman and how you came into the career that you're in today.
Thank you. So first, it's a pleasure. In relation to my background and upbringing, I grew up in Lebanon, a country that is very dear to my heart, and where my family, had very strong roots and very nice presence. Until the age of 18, I was in a French school. So I studied French as my first language,
Oh, wow.
French and Arabic. And then I moved to the American University in Beirut because we were living in the north. I moved to the capital and I did my undergraduate there at AUB. It was undergraduate in public administration. And that was really the starting point of my career. AUB is a very rooted, renowned, prestigious institution. It has graduated some of the best leaders of the Arab region. And from there, I had this ambition that I want to pursue my PhD with the dream to come back to AUB as a faculty. So this is how much AUB left an impression on me. I wanted to start my career at AUB. And so I traveled to the US. I lived there for about 6 years in California. I was working and starting my MBA in parallel. And then after finishing my MBA, I started my PhD. Things shifted in my personal life. So I started in the US and then transferred to the UK to do my PhD in the UK in social policy at Kent University in Canterbury. So I had this amazing opportunity to travel between, 3 different contexts.
Yes.
And today I appreciate that very much because I had the privilege to be exposed to the American system of education, but also to the UK system, in addition to the American University in Beirut. So it was a very interesting mix in shaping my perspective and my journey. And I ended up really fulfilling my dream and going back to AUB to start my career there as a
Wonderful.
Faculty. That was in 2001. And very quickly, I made my way through the ranks to become associate professor and then full professor. And after, in 7-year time, very short time span, I made it to full professor. I was like, what is next? I needed a new challenge. And in 2015, I was approached by the UN to start a network for them in Lebanon. A network that rallies the private sector around social and humanitarian and environmental projects. So I took it as my new challenge. We started from zero. We were based in AUB, and we were reaching out to CEOs of the private sector to rally support for the UN 2030 agenda and for specific projects that have an impact on the community. And this grew exponentially to be a great success story. So within 3 years, this network had 250 of the largest private sector organizations, the best CEOs of the country, championing and advocating sustainability nationwide. And we did some of the amazing conferences, rallies, but most importantly, impactful projects. So some of the projects, just to give you a flavor, we did a project to train people with disability through the network and place them in the private sector. So this was a very nice, impactful initiative that really tailored to an underprivileged group in Lebanon. And having access to the private sector, we wanted to utilize it to benefit this community. And then the next project we did was during Corona in 2020, where we partnered with the World Food Program, and many of these poor families were stuck in their homes in remote villages. So we managed to mobilize food vouchers for them to be able to get electronically access to food through our network, through the World Food Program. And we reached out to 30,000 families across Lebanon during Corona to make sure that they have access to food. Plus, during the Beirut explosion, we rallied support to rebuild SMEs and give them the chance to stand back on their feet. So just to give you an idea of the sort of work that we did, but this was I think a hallmark of my career. Like, as much as academia meant to me, this opportunity to work with the UN, with CEOs, was a compliment,
right?
And it added the purpose side, the impact side, which is like actual impact on the ground. It was very fulfilling, although it was done completely pro bono, But then through this work, I managed to garner attention, and I was approached to do the same by the Prime Minister of the country at the time, to do the same work for the public sector, and to start introducing this notion of sustainability into our public sector. And that conversation started there, and I ended up joining hands with the Prime Minister to run for Parliament.
Wow.
And ended up in the Parliament of my country in 2018. And I chaired they introduced a sustainability committee for the Parliament, which I was chairing for 2 years, represented my country at the UN in New York for 3 consecutive years with a delegation, writing the first national report of my country on sustainability with input from the private sector, from the public sector. So it was like this challenge that I took marked a huge shift in my career and in shaping my entire journey. Unfortunately, 2020 was a turning point. I happened to be there during the Beirut explosion. I happened to be right there. I was affected, mentally, emotionally. It was my decision at that point to relocate, to turn the page, and to focus back on academia. And this is how I came to Dubai.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, the opportunities that you took advantage of, that you took on. Some people might have been very scared to take up some of these responsibilities, but you took it on. That's absolutely incredible. Thank you for sharing that.
No, it took courage and passion. You have to be passionate and believe that you can mobilize efforts for impact. I'm very passionate about sustainability, about having purpose in life, you know, beyond your profession. Like, what is your ultimate purpose and how you want to be remembered? What kind of heritage you want to create? And how can you, like, have an impact, the widest impact on your country, your communities?
Did you know, as a young woman going from the U.S. to the U.K. and then coming back to Lebanon, I mean, there must have been incredible culture shocks going to these different places. How did that affect you at that age?
I must admit that the first move I made, I was very young, as 21 when I moved to the US, and it was a shock, you know, coming from a like relatively conservative environment to a very open, very westernized, completely different culture.
And it was California.
It was California. But then I came to appreciate what the US has to offer, the opportunities, the openness, the modernity, the evolution that they were witnessing across sectors. So I started to embrace it. But it took me a good year to make that shift, you know.
Is there a memory that you have of kind of an idea that you had about the U.S. that completely surprised you when you got there?
Yes, definitely. A lot, but I think the one main thing is that we all fantasize about the U.S. and, you know, it's everyone's dream to be in the U.S. But then it hit me that culturally and socially, it was a very different context. You know, I grew up in Lebanon, and it's such a warm, social, family-oriented, friends-oriented, and you find yourself there, de-rooted, but also it's a very different pace of life, style of life, and it's like everyone minding their own business and running after, chasing their dreams and opportunities.
Right.
So it's a very individualistic culture as opposed to coming from a more of a communal culture.
Right.
I think this was the biggest shock that I had to adjust to.
Did you find that in the UK as well, that the UK was similar?
The UK was similar, although to a lesser degree, you know. They are individualistic, but also they make the effort to socialize more, to appreciate the person more, to connect with them on a personal level. This is what I struggled with in the US.
So that's very interesting that your experiences in the US and the UK. I was actually born in the UK, and I went to Canada. I didn't go to the U.S. But I remember, you know, my family's from Sri Lanka, and so we're Tamil Sri Lankan. So at home, we had this kind of culture at home, and then when you walk out the door, whether it was the UK or Canada, it was different, and so you had to balance between many different worlds, especially as we were pursuing our education and also our jobs. But I imagine you must have picked up some very interesting skills going from culture to culture. How did that help you when you came back to Lebanon? Was it maybe a challenge because some of the people around you didn't have that experience of the US and the UK, or was it easier? How did it feel for you?
It felt like a blessing.
Like a blessing, yeah.
It really is, because I think it's enriching, and it is a privilege. It's not something that is accessible to everyone, and we should not take it for granted. We should appreciate, despite our struggles and our moments of doubt and frustration. We all have these.
Yes.
But at the end, when you complete something, and when you have the opportunity to be exposed to different cultures and their best practices, and to shape and enrich your mind and your soul, it shapes you in a different way. You're a different person altogether. And I think I feel like really fortunate to have had the opportunities to travel, to be exposed, to get education in multiple contexts, because it just made me who I am today.
Yes, yes. That's beautifully put. I don't think I thought that beautifully when I was traveling around like that. I'm not sure if I appreciated it in that moment. But yes, in hindsight, it was absolutely what you said, extremely enriching for my soul, and provided some opportunities. And I saw the world in a different way, which was nice. But so I also really resonated with your calling in this sector to, you were an academic, but you went into, it's related, but into the sustainability sector. And you had mentioned, I think, please correct me if I'm wrong, but that it was new to Lebanon at that point, this concept of sustainability. How was that introducing it to the Lebanese community?
I think I was very passionate about this, so I started to research it and try to understand it more. And at the time, it was more like corporate social responsibility. So we evolved from that to, we had a paradigm shift to sustainability with the UN 2030 agenda, and now it's the ESG,
Right.
environmental social governance. So I was like, on this from the early beginning, and one of the few early voices in the region to talk about corporate social responsibility, sustainability. And then I was lucky and fortunate to be part of this paradigm shift every time it occurred. But I had the opportunity to speak because of my research and my passion, to start speaking to CEOs in the region. So I was approaching them and doing interviews with them, whether in Jordan, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Iraq, to understand how they view this social side of the business. Is it really important to them? How do they practice it? What does it mean? Is it personal or is it institutional?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this has, I started writing about it, and this has caught up in a way that I never expected, because like my research now is so well cited, because it was one of the predecessors, if you want, one of the early voices to speak about this, to document it from a practice perspective, from a CEO perspective. So in a nutshell, the majority of these people were believers in sustainability, but more as a philanthropy and more as a personal philanthropy. So they were givers. They wanted to contribute to their communities, but they saw it more as a personal responsibility.
Interesting.
And then it was like, the challenge that I saw is that how do we move this from the personal to the institutional? Because the impact that you create through your organization is amplified, is 10 times more, 100 times more. If you bring your employees on board, if you leverage your business and your entire business expertise, financials, to benefit your community. And this is the shift we started to do through the UN Global Compact, by institutionalizing this ethos of giving back in a sustainable way through the entire business. And I think this is how I started my journey with the UN Global Compact. We approached CEOs And then we asked the organization to nominate a committee, to write a report. So we started creating institutions within the private sector, whether in the form of committees, in the form of reporting, to incentivize them to think about it in a different way. It's not just a personal, I write a check, I give it to an NGO. What more can you do through your entire business capability to have a real impact? And it started to shift, because of the credibility of the UN, the momentum, the passion of the CEOs, them trickling this down in their organizations. We started to see a real shift from CSR as philanthropy to CSR as an institutionalized practice.
Incredible.
With more impact that we can measure. And this was what was missing. Nobody was like tracking the impact, measuring the impact, and quantifying this, So it was more like, my conscience is clear, I'm doing great things on a personal level, to more like identify your purpose, identify your KPIs, bring your organization on board, let's track the impact and the beneficiaries. So we scaled it up completely.
That's incredible. Stanford recognized you as one of the top 2% of global researchers. I think that's incredible, just that statement alone. But I really resonated with what you were saying as a small business owner, because we have all these ideas and all this research, but the key is implementation. And we might be passionate as individuals, as you shared, but I think it's incredible, you were able to incorporate this within the business, within the organizations, and of course, the most important thing, to track and measure so we can see what is working. That's absolutely incredible. Thank you for doing that. I think it's of course, an example for others on how they can implement it in their organizations as well.
No, I did it with in a very spontaneous way and with passion, because I believed in it, and then I felt like I had we rallied a lot of support. But I do feel very fortunate to have been able to bridge between the very theoretical side of academia and the more practice-oriented side of, being a practitioner on the ground, making an impact in something that you believe in. Yeah, I feel fortunate to have had this balance.
Yes, not many academics take that extra step.
Very true. Very true. It's tough. It's not easy.
It's not
and
easy.
It takes an opportunity also.
Yes.
And to have the courage to jump on it.
Yes. So the next opportunity you went into was politics. What drew you to that? I mean, you mentioned that you wanted to come back always to Lebanon and to teach at the school that you wanted. You did that, but then you took another step further. What really inspired you to take up that opportunity?
This was, I would say, a diversion, but something that also added a new dimension to my life. It was never planned, never intended. I grew up in a family where public service was at the heart of my family. My father was a mayor of the city in the north, and we had an open door. He was always serving people, calling, doing things to improve the city and the community. My mother was an anesthesiologist, always also serving her community in a different way. So it was like part of our upbringing. And then this opportunity came to join for this parliamentary election in 2018. My initial reaction, I didn't want to do it.
Why not?
I resisted because I'm not a politician. I'm a star academic. I'm very good at what I do. I had a very nice reputation in my community, highly respected within the UN, within the private sector. But then I thought to myself, why you don't want to try? And continue what your father started in that city, because I was being nominated for parliament within that city. And today I really feel again that I had the courage to take that step, and it really put me back in touch with my community, my city, in a way that I never imagined. And it made me realize the great work that my father started, that I was able to build on. But then also it gave me the side of how the government works, how the parliament works, the committees of the parliament, the dysfunctionality of the public sector, the toxic side of politics, you know, all of this. I got the opportunity to witness and to live. And again, it was very difficult at times, but now when I look back, I think it was enriching. It was something that if I shied away, I would have never experienced, would have never grown, in my thinking, in my practice. So yes, there were moments where I'm like, how did I get myself into this? I'm not made for politics, especially in Lebanon, But then if everyone asks me, do you regret? And I say, no, I don't regret. Just the opposite. I appreciate and I value. But it was time to move on.
I think there's a lot of people that point the finger at politicians and decisions that government is making. But I mean, I personally have a great deal of respect for people who take up public service, also are just similar to our armed forces as well, who choose to protect society. But going back to public service, I think, it's similar to your step from academia into, implementing sustainability in these private sectors. It's the courage to take that extra step, which is very difficult. Similarly, a lot of people have ideas of what they would like to see in their country, but nobody has the courage, or very few people have the courage to take up that role as a politician. And it's not easy, and it seems like it's getting harder with social media and some of the rhetoric on social media. But that's I think, it must have been wonderful to feel as a young woman you wanted to come back to learn and come back, and now again you're serving your country in a different way. That's amazing.
What you say is spot on, because when I took the political role, it was purely with a public service ethos, and it's like, how can I magnify my impact through this new role or new function? And the difference, like when we did this amazing work with the UN, we were able to scale it, quantify it, measure it. This network that we started was rated as the most innovative of the UN networks, one of the most innovative globally. I couldn't see this impact through my role in the parliament, because of it was too much divisions, too much inertia, very difficult to get things done and moving and scaling.
Yes.
So it was more frustrating, coupled with the connotation of politicians now.
Yes.
And the bullying that you have to deal with. And it was like, some people are really honest, go into this with good intentions to make a difference, but then you are not given the real opportunity to do so because of the specific setup. And just to share an anecdote, like now with social media, the amount of harassment and bullying that politicians experience is beyond imagination. So I was on a delegation. We visited the UK Parliament, the German Parliament. with a delegation of women parliamentarians, and the only question that I was asking in every place I visited to other parliamentarians, like, do you experience bullying in your role? Because I thought, is this a unique feature of politics in Lebanon, or is it like a global? And I was shocked to learn that everyone in politics, wherever they are, they experience bullying, but to different degrees, you know?
Right.
Like some were even threatened, you know, in a criminal way. So it made me feel, when I finished this tour of different parliaments, oh, this is part of the game, you know? It's like you have to accept it and live with it, because it is what it is. It is a fact.
Yeah. So from politics, you came to Dubai, and you've taken up a role back to academia now at the Canadian University of Dubai. Please tell us about your role there and what you hope to do there.
So I joined Canadian University Dubai. I love this university and this community. It is a very diverse community. We have over 120 nationalities in our student body, and maybe over 50 in our faculty body. And it is a very open, empowering environment. And it is one that is trying to keep up with the hype of, Dubai, and the higher education system now in the UAE is changing in a significant way. And they're trying to set the bar, for the region, to improve their institutions, their curriculum, the experiential learning that they provide to their students, to match some of the best of the Western institutions. So again, it's really fortunate to be here at this moment in time, because it is a time where I see the higher education system of the UAE evolving in a significant way. Canadian University of Dubai is a very special place to my heart. I'm currently serving as Vice President for University Advancement. I served as Vice President for Academic Affairs, where we last year we launched a range of new programs in order to keep up with the changing landscape around us, including a new Masters of Business Analytics, a new Masters of Artificial Intelligence, for example. And we're integrating some key cross-cutting themes across the curriculum, including sustainability, artificial intelligence, employability, and thinking in an active way how to nurture these employability skills amongst our students: critical thinking and problem solving, originality and creativity, leadership and social impact, resilience and adaptability. These are some of the top skills for the future that were identified by the World Economic Forum that we need to nurture in our students to be ready for the future job market. So I had the opportunity to do this amazing work, and now in my new role, it is an opportunity to connect more with the business community.
I see.
And to bring, bridge the gap between academia and industry, to do training programs together, to do events together, to advance the university and its positioning and its branding. It's a very strategic role. I think it fits well with my personality. So here at CUD, I feel lucky because I've also had the opportunity to play multiple roles, all very beneficial for the institution. And I feel like this university has a lot to offer and has a lot of potential for the future.
Yeah, it sounds incredible, and you're on the cutting edge of some of the education that you mentioned. But as you said, these leadership in terms of sustainability, but this global leadership focus, I think, is a critical one, especially as I think throughout the world, people are very much, in my opinion, very polarized at this time and very nationalistic in some countries. So I think it's important to understand the local, but also bring this global context in not only in education, but in the work that we do.
And this is really, I think, what is a differentiator for Canadian University Dubai, because we pride ourselves to be the portal to Canadian education. So our students have immense opportunities to start here, graduate in Canada, or come from Canada and finish here. So we're kind of providing this bridge between the UAE, Dubai, and Canada. And I think that we've seen a lot of appeal now. This generation, third culture, that
Yes.
is very global in their approach, in their thinking, in their ambition. Their ambition is to be not restricted to one context and to benefit from what different contexts have to offer. I think CUD caters to that, and it is a key differentiator.
Do you see, I mean, you've been in the academic field, of course, as a student and now as a VP. What are the changes that you see in education? Now we have the internet, of course, but now we also have ChatGPT in terms of AI. What are you seeing in terms of the future of education and work?
Well, I think the education is at a tipping point that if we do not adapt very quickly, the education risks becoming obsolete, because students don't want to learn in the classical way. They have access to information. And so what you want to see how to add value in a different way, through experiential learning, through like integrating AI rather than resisting AI to enhance the learning experience. I think I was just attending a conference with Coursera yesterday, and the significant way in which AI is shaping learning in higher education is transformative. And I think that we need to have an open mind, that we are at this very critical juncture, and that we need to embrace these changes and make them work for the best of the learning process and the students.
Yes, I agree. I think it's going to be very interesting to see. My daughter is 8 and my son is turning 6 in a few days. And I'm curious what they're going to be thinking about in terms of their career path or what they want to learn. I mean, they still have a long way to go for a university education, but I'm interested to see what the opportunities will be. I mean, I never thought that I would be doing a podcast when I was in university. The opportunities were much different, so it's exciting. It's exciting.
It is, and I think from year to year we're seeing what for me was unimaginable changes, and I think within 10 years, by the time your kids reach university, it will be very, very different too.
Yes.
And God bless them.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Dr. Jamali, it has been a wonderful pleasure hearing sharing your story. I thank you very much. I think you're a woman who has taken up every challenge that's been in front of her. So I think people will be very excited to see the things that you're doing next. But thank you very much for joining the podcast today.
It was my absolute pleasure.